In the video titled, "Can Money Actually Buy You Happiness?" Dr. Mike Israetel discusses the pessimistic fallacy, the myth of wage stagnation, and the role of pessimism in our evolutionary ancestry. He argues that pessimism is out of touch with reality in the modern world and that insane optimism is becoming more realistic as life improves. Dr. Israetel begins by explaining the pessimistic fallacy, which is the tendency for people to be pessimistic about the future and to think that things were better in the past. He argues that people often underestimate how good things are today and make pessimistic predictions for the future. He uses the myth of wage stagnation as an example, stating that the idea that wages haven't gone up since the 1970s is not supported by evidence. Factors such as seniority and the changing nature of jobs should be considered and looking at wages for specific jobs. Additionally, total compensation, including benefits and other forms of compensation, should be taken into account. Median income is a more valid comparison than average income, as it is not skewed by extreme wealth or poverty. In reality, median income and total compensation have been increasing in modern Western countries. Dr. Israetel emphasizes the importance of being intellectually honest when discussing these topics and avoiding the use of misleading metrics like household income, which can be affected by changes in household size. He suggests that a more accurate assessment would look at total compensation per industry, field, IQ, etc. He acknowledges that there are exceptions to the overall improvement, such as inflation, housing costs, and the cost of goods. However, he argues that inflation has been relatively stable over the long term and that median income per capita is a good way to measure how much money people make. He also mentions the concept of time price, which refers to how much stuff you can buy with an hour of work, and states that it is also improving. Dr. Israetel acknowledges that analyzing the quality of goods is difficult, but gives the example of cars, which are much better today in terms of pollution and safety compared to cars from the 1970s. He argues that integrating quality into the assessment cancels out inflationary effects, although there are exceptions caused by government interference, such as housing regulation leading to higher prices and a cost of living crisis. He then delves into the evolutionary reasons behind pessimism, explaining that our brains and behavior patterns are not adapted for modern times. He describes how our ancestors lived in a brutal and dangerous environment, where predators were hiding in every bush and survival was a constant struggle. He argues that pessimism was adaptive in those times, as it helped control statistical risk exposure. However, in the modern world, where physical danger, lack of food, and lack of medicine are rare, pessimism is out of touch with reality. Dr. Israetel states that realism is actually optimism because it acknowledges the trajectory of improving quality of life, medicine, healthcare, and climate control. He mentions that climate-related deaths have decreased significantly due to climate mastery. He argues that pessimism is not useful for personal development or success in various aspects of life and that optimism without reason is not recommended. He advocates for realism, which considers the increasingly wonderful world we live in. The discussion then shifts to the topic of money and happiness. Dr. Israetel unequivocally states that money can buy happiness. He argues that while there are cases where money cannot bring happiness, there are many cases where it can. He gives the example of buying things that one likes, as everyone has something they enjoy. He also mentions the ability to lavish the people closest to you or support those in need as ways in which money can bring happiness. In conclusion, Dr. Mike Israetel challenges the pessimistic fallacy and argues that pessimism is out of touch with reality in the modern world. He emphasizes the importance of being intellectually honest when discussing topics like wage stagnation and highlights the improvements in median income and total compensation. He also discusses the evolutionary reasons behind pessimism and advocates for realism as the best approach. Finally, he asserts that money can buy happiness in various ways, such as buying things one enjoys and helping others in need.